Hello again. My name is Jeanne Sparrow, and I have spent over 30 years in radio and television. And in my latest adventure, I am speaking, I'm consulting, and I'm sharing what I've learned along the way about success and about life. Now, I believe that the biggest source of our biggest successes comes from the value that we bring to others when we're able to express our truest, most authentic selves. It's something I call fearless authenticity. Now, I started this podcast to have conversations with people from every walk of life about what fearless authenticity really looks and feels like to them. What happens when we find and follow our passions, and how the highest expressions of who we are actually serves others. We're going to talk about it all in here. I want this to get real. I want it to be honest and open about all the ups and the downs, the distractions and the doubts, the goals and the dreams, the failures and the triumphs, and every single thing in between. And I hope it gets deep, because that's where we find the best stuff. But it's also about the fun in life, because if it ain't fun, it ain't worth doing. Okay? All right. So let's find out together ways to move forward, push through, make our dreams come true, and engage with the world in the way that we were created to. If you are ready to live your life as big as you dare and be brave, be free, and be you, let's learn how to do this together. Welcome to Fearless Authenticity with Jeanne Sparrow. Today's guest is a mentor, a friend, and a big encourager of my fearless authenticity really early on. He has been one of the most influential radio executives for the past 30 years or more, serving as program director and guiding visionary for one of the most successful and respected brands in the industry, WGCI in Chicago. And of course, he went on after that to define Black radio across the country in markets like Philadelphia, San Francisco, and now in Orlando and Jacksonville as the director of branding and programming for Cox Media Group. Much of what I know and share with the world started with what I learned from this man. I am proud, happy, and honored to welcome the one and only Elroy R.C. Smith to my podcast. Smitty!
Well, Jeanne, when I got word that you were doing this, no way I said, should I? I don't know. It was an instant yes, only because you influenced me as well. Having your presence at the radio station, helping a show like the Steve Harvey Show to stay on track, you were like, my goodness, the conductor of that show. So I just want to say to you, thank you. A lot of times people sit back and say, well, WGCI in Chicago was successful because of you. No, I correct them. It's people like yourself and so many others that contributed to the success of that brand.
Thank you so much, Smitty. The further I get in the business and the more people I meet in the business, they're like, I wish I would have got to work for Elroy back in the GCI. And it's like, we didn't know how good we had it back then.
Right.
And we were always like, we wish we had this and we wish we had that, but it was so good. And I think we learned so much. But the thing about your leadership that I always appreciated was that you empowered us. Like, one of the things that I talk to a lot to my clients about, whether it's a group training, whether it's one-on-one, whether I'm speaking, I talk to people about how who they are, their individual uniqueness is what the differentiator are. Like, I learned branding from you. I didn't even know what that was until I went to grad school. I was like, oh, I know this. Wait, oh.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Smitty, is that you taught us that. I remember you telling me, I don't know if you remember you saying this, but I quote you all the time when you said, everybody that's in the same format, if you go up and down the dial, you're going to hear the same songs. It's what happens in between the songs that makes somebody say, I'm going to stay to hear what happens
that's
next.
Really crazy, because that particular notion, it's more important today than back in the day. Why? Because there are so many mediums. And I was telling a personality today, why are we saying in 20 minutes, leave the door open, it's coming on? In 20 seconds, that listener can hear the song. So you're saying something that is useless to them. This phone here lives next to people every single day. So when radio says, "Oh, we have the brand new," I don't even like the word "brand new" anymore on the radio. Why? So
Because by the
people,
time we get it, it's old.
right, right. I mean, all of those crazy things that we do on the. Oh, you gotta talk for only 20 seconds. Well, if that's the case, every personality should stay home in the pajamas, do their show. Why are they needed at the radio station? Oh, that talk break was too long. 20 seconds. By the time you say the station's call letters and their slogan, that's 15 seconds because some are real long. Then you got 15 seconds on your own to shine. How in the world can one become a successful personality in 30 seconds? Unless I'm missing something, please somebody help me out.
Listen, brother, you have always been right. And the fact that you keep working and being places and influencing different markets and spreading that special magic, I think speaks to that. And I think that we've all learned the power of audio just from the fact that we're sitting in this room together,
Right,
and people will hear this, and
right.
we are both in our own homes,
Yep,
sitting here having conversations about stuff, but hopefully stuff that will help people be able to see how it helps them, not just radio folks, not just TV people, but anybody, because that uniqueness, like the brand that we had, anybody can build. And
mhm,
that's the thing, that I think was the biggest gift you gave us, is that aren't just a programming genius, but you're a marketing genius too, and way ahead of the curve too. Like, how did you know back then that who we were as individuals and people being attached to us was the thing when nobody else was really doing that?
well, Gene, I study people. Think about everybody that is successful. They branded themselves. I'll give you an example. The Weekend. No offense to the Weekend. He's not the greatest of singers, but we have a Darnell Jones who's a phenomenal singer. But if Darnell Jones walked past Grant Park right now, no one would know that guy. But if the Weekend walked, oh my goodness, why? Because that company branded him. That's what makes him stand out. The crazy hair, and then he was on some award show with bandages all over his face. That's brilliant. But poor Darnell Jones, my goodness, no one knows who he is. And he's
Unless it's
making
in
great,
Chicago,
yeah,
because people in Chicago love him, but
right,
even
right,
then,
yeah. But I tell you what, if he walked by right now with the Weekend, who would get more attention?
the Weekend.
Yeah. But if you say, okay, now sing, gentlemen, who would smoke?
Yep. Donnell.
Darnell Jones would. So
in, Without a doubt.
right,
Anybody that can sing a Stevie Wonder song the way he does,
thank you.
and almost better than Stevie.
Thank you very much. So when people like yourself was on the radio, I'm like, say your name. I had no problem every time you started talking, say your name. Then say something about yourself that people don't know. Otherwise, you're just another voice on the radio. And I preach that all the time. Okay, we're giving away tickets to this, we're giving away tickets to that. So what? Go down the dial, someone's saying the same thing. But if Gene Sparrow talked about, boy, I've lost my father, I hate to even bring that up, but you're that vulnerable. And people will be able to connect. Robin Roberts, no doubt, she blew up when she revealed that she had breast cancer. We all knew the name. Great voice on Good Morning America, everything about her. Oh, we love her. But let me tell you something, the love went to a whole different level, Gene, when she said, I have breast cancer. Then she took it a notch even higher when she said, I am going to go on television bald. What woman on this planet would want to go on television, on national TV, Gene Sparrow, bald?
Bruh, let me tell you something. I was in tears. I was in tears. I think that's actually when I switched finally over, because I worked for NBC for so long. The
Yeah,
Today Show was a habit for me, but that's when I switched over, because I was like, Robin is the real deal. And she was doing it to help women who look like her.
yes,
And to be honest, for me, and I can't speak for Robin, but sharing my dad's passing and his dementia, his struggle with dementia, and trying to help other people who are going through the same thing, other caregivers, other
Yeah.
families,
Yeah.
that I've gotten letters from people. And even when I had some, some women problems, female problems and stuff, and had to have a hysterectomy, I
Yeah.
thought I had cancer and I didn't. It ended up coming back negative. But there were several women that reached out to me and said, I'm so glad you shared that, because I was scared to go back to the doctor because I was scared of what was going to happen. And she was like, you might have saved my life. And I was just I was so taken aback by that, because I was doing it to make myself feel better. Do you know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
But the thing
Right.
is, you never realize how you impact other people. And all of that started with you for me. So thank
Well,
you for
Jeanne,
giving me the permission for that.
well, thank you. Do you know there are so many personalities that would rather not say that they are married? I
Oh, yeah.
remember a personality saying, don't want to let them know about my life. Why? Because they wanted to project the notion that they were single. Guess what? That personality didn't go too far. Why? Because they limited their being to the audience. But it's okay to say, I'm married. Women love that. Oh my goodness, I have, a 4-year old, an 8-year old, not me, but personalities talking on the air. There's a connection. But if there's no connection, how can they relate to you? In other words, if they were let go tomorrow, we would get not one phone call. Why? There was never that personal connection. They were just a voice on the radio. And I commend you for being vulnerable with your audience, telling them what's going on with you. But it takes boldness to do that, as you know.
Yeah. And for me, it has shifted over the years, because like there sometimes it's like you tell this much, and then
Right.
sometimes you're like, everybody's not willing to be fully bald,
I know.
but it's like getting closer to it. Well, you know what? Tell me what, because before you started the current gig you have now in Florida, you had started a branding business. So tell me about all the products and practices and
Yeah.
services and projects you're working on that you are excited about right now. Because I want to know what you're doing now and how you've taken all these things and turned it into the next thing.
Well, Jeanne, it's a 8-week program. We have 8 weeks of intense training. So the first session is on how to become a successful personality. I don't like to use the word DJ, a personality. So that's one session. And then think every other session is a critique session. So I'll just lay out the 4 instructional sessions. So, how to become a great personality. That's one. Next, what you and I are talking about right now, or the title of your podcast, being authentic, or I call it being vulnerable. As much as we talk about Wendy Williams and everything else, that lady became famous not because of her television show, because of her radio show. She became famous because she revealed who she was, whether it's a happy day or a sad day. Mary J. Blige. You go to a Mary J. Blige concert, you see people there in reverence to that lady. Why? They feel as though they know her on a personal level.
Remember
So,
when we stopped the hits during my show when she came on and people were called, like it was
done,
the best hour of
done,
radio.
done.
Oh,
So why? Because people feel as though they know Mary J. Blige. So same with Wendy Williams. So that's session number 2, being vulnerable. The third session is, I don't like this word, interview. You know why? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you haven't done it yet, thank God. My first question to you, oh my goodness, that drives me crazy.
yeah.
Let's change the word from interview to a conversation. What you're doing with me, you're having a conversation. Whether you have notes or not, I don't know. You're just sort of, ad libbing to me. So it's tips on how to have a great conversation. And then we also have another part to that, how to be a great storyteller. And I got to give props to Steve Harvey. That guy can tell a story to the point where you are envisioning, Jeanne, what he's saying. And that's why you and Steve, when you guys were on in the morning at WGCI, it was such a compelling show. why. He would tell stories. You would egg him on to tell more. And that's what made the show very, very compelling. And then the last session, instructional, is branding. Um, GMA never ever needs to say Good Morning America ever again. We all know what it is, right? So tips on branding. And then after that, just build upon your brand. If you become a brand, the incomes come from all angles, right? Look at Michael Strahan. My goodness.
I ain't
I
Michael
mean,
Strahan, but yes,
but you get
multiple
my
streams of
point.
income. Brother, let me tell you something. And that was another thing that I thought was so genius about what you and Marv did is you encouraged all of us to do that instead of limiting us, because every time each one of us was out someplace, we were the brand for the station, and it
Yeah.
was genius.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jeanne, I'll share this with you. A lot of radio stations treat morning drive and afternoon drive as the primary day parts. As much as I know that, but why not treat every single day part as significant? I mean, I joke about this. At 3 o'clock in the morning, we had this feature on WGCI called Heartbreak Hotel, where you remember where people were down and out and they wanted to check in into this hotel. I remember getting letters saying, "Where exactly is the hotel located?"
I remember doing that Wait, did I start that?
I
I
don't
can't
know who
remember.
started it.
I think it might have
Did,
been
did you
me. I'm
ever
not
did
sure.
you ever do the show Heartbreak
Yeah,
Hotel?
because remember, I worked overnights before I started working with Steve. You pulled me off of overnights. And yes, I think I did. And the other thing was, what was it? The Lost and Found. Before there was Facebook, when we used to put people's stories out.
It,
Oh my
but
gosh.
we were able to find them.
Yes.
So it was on a Saturday. And
Yep.
you haven't seen Jean. Oh, someone called. I'm trying to find my friend Jean Sparrow. She and I went to college together. For whatever reason, she got married. I know she's somewhere in Illinois, and all of a sudden, minutes later, Jean Sparrow is connected with a long lost friend. You're like, you're kidding.
You're like,
That's the,
Adrian? Is that you?
I know, Jean. That is the power of audio if you utilize it correctly.
Right. Now, would you say that your course is, because even though you're talking about radio, I would imagine that anybody could take your course to learn how to do a podcast better, to learn how to
Yeah,
move through
and
the world better.
I'm limiting it, and I hear you loud and clear. We do it for broadcasters and podcasters.
Okay.
However, you are right. If you are in the limelight, no matter what field, you still need to be vulnerable, right? You still need to be branding yourself. You still need to be able to ask the appropriate questions. You still need to be a storyteller. So, Jean, thank you. We need to expand that, right?
Listen, brother, everybody, the more people I run into, the more people I realize did not have the advantage of the things that we know. Cause like we are such a little corner of the world that's
Right,
to its own self. Like even
right.
though broadcast interacts with so many different industries and we get to meet so many different people, the
Yeah,
things that we know about connecting with audiences is, I think, unique to us, especially for radio,
yeah.
because we've been able to keep people's attention. And even though people keep saying we dead, it's never dead. And
Yeah. Well, Gene, as I'm listening to you, I remember, I think you were in the air during 911.
9/11, yeah.
Yeah, or the E2 situation. For those of you that
Yep.
don't know what happened, was this popular nightclub in Chicago called E2. Unfortunately, 21 people lost their lives because they were stampeded. Most stations would say, let's report it, but let's not stop playing the hits. That situation at E2 9/11, um, no hit record is more important than those two situations.
I
So,
remember that moment, those moments, because I was at the station for 9/11.
sure.
I remember driving in that morning going,
Woo.
what is this going to be today?
Yeah,
Are we going to
yeah,
be safe? You know, that whole thing. And
yeah,
I remember going into your office going, can we just play like one gospel song so we could have
sure.
a bathroom break? And then we
Right.
came back and did talk, like,
Oh,
because
yeah,
that's all people wanted to do. And
yeah,
then I remember for E2, I was working at Channel 5 but I remember being in touch with you
Mm-hmm.
because I knew what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, y'all, I remember being on the morning show going like
Yeah.
y'all, this is huge. And this is
Well,
going to be like groundbreaking and thanks to y'all, we partnered and did some stuff.
well,
So
Jeanne, this was unbelievable. At 5:30 in the morning, Reverend Jesse Jackson was at E2 and he was on NBC live. No exaggeration. Until WGCI announced it, that's when it became like, this is real. Why? That audience that were harmed on that night, that was our audience.
that was our people.
You got it.
Yep.
And there's no way that we could have continued on doing a regular morning show.
Mm-mm.
People always thought WGCI was some eclectic, different type of radio station. And guess what? I would rather be different versus being better. We were just a different animal. We would go from what? Jesus can work it out, right? In the middle of the day. I'll tell you, Gene,
I'll
I
be
was,
doing my little dance.
yeah. Gee, I was on Madison Avenue. No lie. Came up to the traffic light, and here comes a car blasting Dr. Charles G. Hayes, I believe that's what it
Yep.
was. And I turned, guy smoking pot, but Jesus can work it out. And it was on WGCI. And he just zoomed off when the light changed and life went on.
Remember
Yeah, go ahead.
Kanye, Jesus Walks. I
Yeah,
remember when you broke that. I
yeah,
remember when you put that on, and people were telling him that it was never going to be a hit because even at that time,
right, right. It's because what? And everything came from the gut. And even the personalities, hey, Elroy, something's going on here. Should we look into it? The answer is yes. You remember Katrina. We were there from 6 in the morning until 6 p.m. And at the end of the day, there were 15, 18 wheelers taking supplies to
I
New
remember
Orleans.
that.
And Gene, I didn't think it would be that extraordinary. Maybe one or two 18 wheelers, and we would have went about our business. They had to call back for more and more and more and more. That is, well, props to our listeners as well. Remember, we have the best listeners,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
But it's also the connection.
Yes,
So tell me, at what point, because it was interesting looking back at all the different facts of your life that
right.
you sent, and we'll get into some of those in a moment. But I wanted to talk about when you decided or when you knew that this was what you wanted to do with your life. Was there a moment? Was it you doing something that you didn't really care very much about that made you commit to this path? Or was it something that happened gradually over time, or where everything just kind of clicked and you were like, this is what I'm meant to do?
Well, that's interesting. I am from Bermuda, and I was 17 years old, didn't do well in school, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I was in this singing group. We performed for, I still see it to this very day, we performed for about 5,000 people on a field. And then after the performance, the group pulled me aside and said, "You're fired." I'm thinking all of those fans, if they knew what just went down after I performed, they would be pretty upset. So they're like, "Your voice didn't work with the group, and so we have to let you go." No consideration, at least let me come down off my high. I just performed. I just performed, but okay, here I am, fired from this group, walked away feeling, down and out, feeling despaired. Then all of a sudden, this radio thing just entered my mind. So, Gene, I went to the local radio station in Bermuda. They said, okay, here's some copy. Would you read it? No lie. I fumbled, and fumbled over the copy. Then one person said, you may want to go to school. And ding, I dropped out of high school. I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay. So I went to this program in New York, become a DJ in 9 months. You remember those rip-off
Yes,
schools? Like, oh,
yes,
become a nurse in a year,
right.
So
You did that?
I did that. I went to New York, G, got my diploma, came back to Bermuda. They gave me a little, show here and there. And I said, no, this is not enough. So I wanted to go to college. So here I am, no transcripts from high school, no high school diploma. I called a college in Boston saying, hey, I want to learn more about radio. They said, oh, sure, send your transcripts, the normal thing you need, right? I said, I don't have transcripts. I don't have a high school diploma. You don't? I said, no. They said, Mr. Smith, I'm going to tell you something. We are about to close in a year and a half. If you get a letter from a politician and a minister representing your character, we'll let you in. And Jeanne, I got two letters. Bermuda's only 65,000 people, right? I could find a minister and an attorney or whoever. So I found them, sent the letters off, and they called and said, you've been accepted. I'm like, well, thank you. So I went off to college in Boston. I school is Graham Junior College, Kenmore Square in Boston. While in school, I felt so left behind. Every day I would read an encyclopedia just to learn about American history because I'm in class feeling inferior, feeling really backward. Then here comes a year that I've been in school. They come to me, people from the school, Mr. Smith, we told you when you came in that we'll be closing in a year and a half. We will be closing next semester. So you need to do 9 courses to get your associate's degree. So, Jeanne, I did 9 courses and I received my associate's degree in mass communication. Oh, I'm sorry, broadcast journalism. Then I went back to Bermuda. At that point, they're like, boy, give this guy a job. So I was on for the summer. Then something hit me. I said, I'm still not fulfilled. So I went back to Boston this time. I had my transcript then. I transferred to Emerson College and got my mass communications degree
Wow.
from Emerson College. Yep.
Wow. So all of those things, every little thing pushed you a little bit more. And it's
Yeah,
like you got to one achievement and then it said, no, that's not enough. Here's some
you
more.
got it.
And then that explains to me how we did what we did at GCI, because you never let us sit on our laurels. Like literally I remember having these meetings when the ratings would come out. And you would go, okay, and I remember like coming past the program department, like when the trends would come out every month, you were like, we're doing good. We still got two more months to go. And then we'd have the meeting and literally you would spend like 5 minutes on the numbers. You congratulate everybody. We'd have like a little celebration, 10 minutes. And then the rest of the meeting would be about what we're doing next. So is that where it all started with, or do you think you were born with that inside of you?
You know what? I really don't know. In terms of those meetings, they were so important for us because I wanted to create that sort of family atmosphere, which we did too. And I made them fun so people won't feel like, my goodness, I got to be formal,
Oh
got to be
no.
proper in these meetings. Um, Jeanne, I really don't know. When you have a passion, you don't even have to think about anything because you take the punches as I've taken, and there are more punches you'll hear in a minute. So that was one punch, Jeanne. In Boston. Now I've graduated, right? Oop, my school visa is about to expire. So what happened? I get this full-time job at a station called WILD. It was only on during the day, sunrise to sunset.
A daytime
And
AM,
yeah,
honey. People don't
daytime
even
AM.
know. People don't
Come on.
even know the
Yeah, they
pain.
don't. They
We
they
used to
don't.
sign off and play the Star Spangled Banner,
Right. And look, this ends our broadcast day. It's 4:15 in the wintertime when it gets dark,
and
and
it's
we're
like,
signing off.
bye.
Or you sign on. Morning drive is almost over because you're signing on at 7:15.
Right. Mm.
But Jeanne, here I am. School visa are about to expire. I'm concerned because I did not want to go back home. Now I'm at this WILD in Boston part time. The day I graduated, I got a full time job there. So, oh my goodness. So I stayed in America hoping that, you know, I will be able to be in America legitimately. Here comes this young man, or an older man. Hey, listen, come visit my office. Bring a lady friend. I said, bring a lady friend. Yeah, because I know, you're interested in living here in America. I said, I am. So I'm all naive. Bring this lady friend with me. He sits me down and says, Mr. Smith, if you want to get your green card, um, you must make her your wife. Um, and I'm like, okay, but know this. Immigration can come by your home at any time to see if this is a legitimate marriage. So you give me $500 and you give the lady $500. So I walked away saying, something doesn't feel right. Jeanne, at that time, I didn't know God. I just wanted to stay in America. So woke up the next day saying, I don't feel this. A month later, drove past his office. His office was boarded up. He went to jail. So
God
I
was
spent,
protecting you, my brother.
come on, come on,
Protecting you.
come
I
on.
mean, a cloak of safety, because there's a lot of people who've made that choice, and understandably so, because it's so hard navigating, that world. I had no idea, Smitty.
Yeah. So how did it all end? The gentleman that owned this daytime radio station that you referenced, he said, Elroy, I would love to sponsor you so that you could live in America legitimately. So he went ahead and sponsored me to have my green card. I still see to this very day, opening up my mailbox, seeing this green card. I was just blown away. So that was in 81. In 83, I was promoted to being the program director. I remember the day that the promotion happened. I called then my girlfriend saying, her name is, or was Denise, said, Denise, I have been given this position, so I want to concentrate on my career. And so we are no longer, girlfriend, boyfriend. This was around 10 in the morning, called her on a job. She was about 90 pounds. She came into the radio station. Now, imagine this. The station is in the hood.
I already know.
Yeah, imagine. I don't know if I've shared this with you.
No, you
Um,
haven't, but I already know this story. I
yeah,
know
yeah.
how this is going to go. But tell me, tell me.
So, Gene, it's 5:30. No security, door not locked. So she walks past the front desk, comes down to my office, literally flips my desk over, and almost ripped my lip off and walked out. But I'll say this: if Denise came and interrupted this meeting right now, I would say to her, I deserved everything that you did. Why? That's what happens when you get these positions and when you elevate, you forget who that individual was that was helping you to rise to that occasion. So I'm saying this to say to you that I learned from that experience, and I would say to her, I am not upset with you. It was a great awakening for me.
Mm. What would you say is the biggest challenge of all the things you've been through? I mean, because our industry is brutal. Like, people,
Right,
successful people get fired every day.
right,
Why? Just because.
right.
And it's just how it goes. The nature of our business. We've all been. I remember when the first time I got fired. I remember one of my friends was like, "Okay, move on to the next thing," and it literally doesn't matter. And so, what would you say your biggest challenges, either personally or professionally, and um how do you bounce back from that? Like, it sounds like you learn from every, you've learned how to learn from every setback, but is there like a process you have now of the bounce back? Because it doesn't seem like anything gets you down, Smitty.
And I'm glad you asked. That's an awesome question. Yeah, sometimes I become anxious. Why? Because we love this business so much. I remember saying to someone, I wish I did not love this business the way I love it. because it could put you through some pain and agony. Then, Jane, we can flip the script. I'm glad that I do love it. Why? I've been doing something for what almost 40 years that I love, but it comes with pain and agony. No, I know many times where I've despaired. Like, man, is this over? Because this industry is so small. When your name disappears, you're forgotten that quickly. And I'm not saying it's intentional. People just continue about their lives and, okay, what's next on the agenda? So, yeah, when the doors are closed, absolutely, I go through forms of depression, forms of, man, will I ever get back to do what I enjoy doing? And then to have a loving wife, such as my wife, Vonda, she's always encouraging me. She doesn't feed into the negativity or feed into the doubt.
That's always been who she is, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Always.
So having a partner to support you when things are a little shaky works, and then prayer. Man, I'm always begging. Right, God, here we go again. I know it, God. I'm done again. What's gonna happen? Yeah. So yeah, Jane, that's really it. And Lord knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Gene, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Because look at the pandemic. Like, who thought, like,
Yeah,
I was so shocked. I remember one of the things, I remember when the pandemic first hit, I
yep,
thought, like, I had only been in business for a couple years. Like, I was ready for like my best year yet.
sure,
And I literally was on my knees like, Lord,
of course.
I don't even know how I'm gonna get through this. And I still had my best year yet, but I could not have seen it had I not trusted where it was gonna go. So yeah, I agree with you. Faith is really important. And I think it's also important that we're doing things we love, because I think you, for the things that you love doing, the things that God put you on this earth to
Yeah,
do,
yep,
when you are walking in your purpose,
yep.
then those hard things don't, the hard part doesn't feel as hard for as long, I guess,
Right,
right?
right. Now, Gene, you and I could be offered $6 million to do a job we don't enjoy. Here's what we'll be doing all day: looking at
Yep.
our phone. Whew, it's 11:30. Oh my goodness, I
Mm-mm,
got 5 more hours in this joint.
mm, mm-mm,
And then you're done, you get that big paycheck, and then you're thinking, come tomorrow. Oh,
mm-mm. I have
man.
walked away from jobs because I'm like, this has not served me anymore. And people look at me like I'm crazy. But what the people who know me understand,
Hmm.
and that's all that matters to me.
Hmm.
And I think that I'm so blessed. And I know you are as well. But one of the things that I'm truly grateful for is that I saw that example in you and Marv and everybody, Angela and everybody who we worked at, Lana and Abe and all those folks who were like right ahead of me, making sure I stayed on that track and that I
Hmm.
saw it in real time. And that's the thing I try to tell the young people who come up behind me, because their world is very different in our industry
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
But there's
yeah.
so many talented people, and there are also talented people in the world who are just doing stuff because they think that's what they're supposed to be doing.
Right, right. Gene, you touched on some people like Amar Dyson, the late Lana Thompson. We had an environment that I've even said I would love to repeat history, meaning those days that we experienced. I know that we're talking about the 90s, early 2000s, but we could not even pay. We could not even pay to do what we experienced, meaning it was organic, it was loving, it was supportive of one another. That environment, my goodness, I only wish that every broadcaster, every podcaster would have experienced what you and I are, talking about today. It's hard to envision what we're sharing here because they're just happy that they were working together. But no, it was
Mm-mm.
an environment that we'll never forget.
And it was intentional.
Yeah,
Like, as I build my team now,
yeah,
and as I lead my team now,
yeah.
I think about the lessons that I learned from all of you, how y'all made me feel. and how I want to make other people feel. And while I can't recreate what you do, that's what I hope people take from this podcast, is not that we had a great life in radio, but that we created something that we can replicate, that all of us can replicate in a different way. I think
But it's also important, as you've done, we have talked about our ups and downs too.
yes,
Because I don't want people to only know about the good times. They need to hear these type of stories so that, oh my goodness, they are going to encounter situations, maybe not like you or I, but something's going to come up that's going to be, whoa, where did that come from? So how do you handle that?
Yep. And because some things will knock you straight off your square, like completely out of it, where you over there going,
I know.
How did that happen? Well, from someone who has given me a lot of great advice, I would love to know what's the best piece of advice, encouragement, or guidance that you've gotten in your career along the way.
Yeah, one of the things I try to live by, treat people the way you would want to be treated. Every time I'm thinking of a decision, I always say, reverse it. And Jane, the truth always comes out when you reverse it. And instead of being selfish, looking at it only from your point of view. If someone is saying, "Oh, right, I cannot make a meeting because I have childcare and the person is late," versus, "Well, you should have left early." None of that. Just respect what that person has said, and guess what happens? They will respect you. Versus, "Well, the next time you're late, all the threats, all of that doesn't work." And I've learned that people work for people, not for companies. Okay.
That part. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because I will work for you anywhere you ask me to. I've told you that before. I will work for you. You are still, and I've worked with some amazing people. You are still my number one boss, number one manager, number one supervisor. Like I mean, even remember those little notes you used to send? Let me tell y'all, Elroy. Wait, hold up. Elroy used to write these things, CME, and it would be this. It would be this scribbly scratch. Right. I'm like, what? Huh? What? What is this?
Well, did that force you to come to see me because you couldn't read it, right?
Right. But let me tell you something. I never thought that it was something bad. I always knew that it would be something that would make me better. I might not like it, but I always knew that it would be worth my time.
Yeah.
And
looking because back I think you and I gained a trust in one another. I trusted you and you trusted me. So if there was no trust, those notes could be an irritant to people. But if that individual knows that this guy always has my back, you want to know what I'm thinking. But if I'm always beating you down, there's no good news coming from me to you, Jeanne. Those notes could be a possible deterrent that, I don't know if I want to know if I want to go down to the office with this note. Think about it.
Right.
Because you never looked at it as though it was a threat. And again,
no, go ahead.
No, again, I'm reversing the role.
Yeah.
Your personality, not only a celebrity. So let me be careful in terms of how I deliver it. No, I believe that I had a degree in psychology as much as I didn't because I was dealing with so many different personalities, right? Certain personalities I knew I could only critique them privately. But if I did that, with their coworkers, even if it was stated in love, Jeanne, it would devastate them. So I would close the door, just the person and I, totally different response. But if it happened in a public setting, oh my goodness, there's a defense mechanism that pops up and all of that.
And I think there also had to be, I know for me, it was about growth.
Yeah.
For me, it was like I always wanted to be better. So anybody who was trying to help me figure out how to be better, than I was doing. Because like you, it's like, I've done this. Okay, what's next? I've done
Right.
this. Okay, what's
Right.
next? And having somebody who encouraged that instead of discouraging it or trying to make me be somebody else,
Right.
biggest gift I could have ever gotten, because I think so many of us in this business learn how to please people,
Yep.
and that it's just never a way to win. I don't think for anybody. I think
Right.
all that stuff that we learn, some people enforce when we're in school, it
Yep.
doesn't really serve us later. What would you say is your proudest achievement, professionally speaking, and what do you still dream of accomplishing?
I think with regard to the proudest achievement, building relationships with people like yourself. I just don't want to be a transient program director where, okay, he came through this door and life goes on. And then to watch people like yourself grow. I never knew, Jeanne, that putting on Candy Girl in 1983 in Boston, New Edition, first time the song has ever been heard by anybody, I never thought 34 years later that this group would be still significant. I was just, these guys live in the hood. Their little community radio station is probably 3 minutes away from where they live. They wanted a shot, and I was new as a program director. I didn't know what all of this meant.
But
I
Smitty, what you did know was what a hit was.
Yeah, but the audience helped me because we played that song 3 times in a row when I got it. Maurice Starr, the producer, dropped off with Ricky Bell, and I'm like, my goodness, they want more. And then when I heard it on the top 40 station in Boston, I knew that this thing was going to be bigger than some community record. But to answer your question, to impact people, to let them know that you care. Today, all of these relationships still continue. Why? Because you're taking time out to listen, you're taking time out to help people. Same thing that's going to happen in Orlando. I want to take that positive spirit, helping Cox Media Group in Orlando and company wide. So that's the residuals because you're like, oh my goodness, look at Jeanne Sparrow, look what she's doing, or look what Steve Harvey is doing. It's a thrill. So that is something that's very, very near and dear to my heart.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I mean, look at New Edition. They got a whole movie on the BET. And if it wouldn't have been for Elroy R.C. Smith, come on, man, come through.
Yeah, well,
All right.
thank you.
Now, I always like to wrap things up with this one question. When do you feel like you are at your best, truest, most authentic expression of Elroy Smith?
When I have total peace, Jeanne, there's something about having peace, and it just, I don't know, it gives you security. When I see my kids joyful, Jeanne, I have a journal. You won't believe what I put in my journal. Oh, I can't wait to see Kendall, you know, do her gymnastics competition. Vonda, you know, purchased a mug for me that the ice stays cold all day. And, Colin said, Dad, I'm going to work really harder doing this. Carson saying, Dad, whatever, I love you. Those are the things at my age that warm my heart. And if I'm not at peace with my family, it's going to be hard for me to function, within the job setting, within my day to day life. And then also, I got to say this. There's no way that I believe that you and I would be sitting here having this type of discussion without me spending time every morning with God. I do that every single morning. All of what I've shared with you today, this stuff would have crashed and burned if I didn't have the protection of God. I mean, some real close calls, Jeanne, that I've shared with you today could have been a different scenario. Look at our relationship. You can call me for anything, and I will be there for you. Why? Because I remember such wonderful chemistry that you and I had in Chicago, and you would do anything, and you helped me with regard to my career. So it's not just Elroy Smith. People like yourself helped me. You made WGCI shine. You helped to make that station achieve $43 million. African American formatted station achieving $43 million. That is history in itself. To Marv Dyson, the general manager, to Lana Thompson, sales manager, and to Aliza McCarthy, I believe,
Yep.
Clardy,
Mm-hmm.
Clardy, and the entire team. I mean, that is written in the history books that a station like WGCI, that catered predominantly to African Americans, garnered $43 million in 1 year.
Yep. And at a time when there were no urban dictates, when
right.
advertisers could be exclusionary and say that they wanted the number one station unless the audience was Black. Which sounds crazy that was only 20 some years ago, but that happened and we still won. And that's how you know we were putting out something good. And I'm just honored to have been part of it. And thank you. I am grateful for your fearless authenticity and the fearless authenticity that you fostered in me.
Well, Jeanne, thank you so much. This has just been great. I'll remember this moment, and it's always good to be vulnerable with you, right?
Yes.
I'm sure I dropped some nuggets on you today, like,
brother,
oh my God, I thought I knew the
brother. When I tell you, I thought I knew you, and I do, but I know you even better now, and I'm even more honored. And I'm honored that you shared it with in this forum for other people to learn from in the same way that I did. Thank you so much. Elroy R.C. Smith, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Jeanne.
All of my guests make me think, and they also make me consider if I'm moving in the world the way I should be, the best way, the most authentic way possible. And Elroy was not a disappointment in the things that he said today. So here are a couple of things that stand out to me. First, that we need to study people who are successful and see how they branded themselves, because we have to do the same thing. Even if it's something as simple as saying our names and telling someone something about us, because that's the only way that they're going to relate to us. That's the only way they're going to connect. And connection is how we move forward with anybody in partnership or in work. However you want to look at it, that's how we move forward, is by the connections that we have. I also really love that what I call being authentic, Elroy calls being vulnerable. Because I think vulnerability is an essential part of being authentic. You can't be real if you don't take the risk of showing yourself, your true self. Even if there are fears related to that, there's no way around it. There's no shortcut. And one of my favorite things he said was that he would rather be different than be better. Because as much as we want to pretend like this is all a competition, even with ourselves, it's not. It isn't. I think all we have to do is just show up, be ourselves, and get better and resolve the things we came here to learn and the problems that we've had, and keep pushing through. Being different is better than being better. Because here's the other thing. Just because you beat somebody this time doesn't mean that they're not going to come back with something. And maybe you like that back and forth, but you're always going to be looking to see what they're doing, and your actions are going to be a response. And wouldn't it be better if you could just do it the way you want to, period, and still win? Man, thank you, Elroy R.C. Smith, for being authentic with us, for sharing, and for all your guidance through my career, especially early on. So grateful that I met you when I did. Thank you also to my Fearless Authenticity production team for making this pod possible. And thanks to you for your support. We appreciate our listeners so much. Please follow me on social at JM Sparrow. And if you like what you hear, please let us know. Rate, review, and follow us on the iHeart app, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Share it with your community. Also share your thoughts and your ideas with us. We want to know what makes you your best, truest, most authentic self. And if there's somebody you really want me to have this conversation with and find out their fearless authenticity story, send those ideas too. We'd love to expand who we're talking about and who we're thinking about would be great to share these ideas with. This has been Fearless Authenticity with Jeanne Sparrow. Thank you, and we'll see you again soon.